animal communicator and Reiki master practitioner with animal love languages, and I wanted to continue our series on highly sensitive pets. How do you know that you have one? How can you work with a highly sensitive pet so that you meet their needs without engaging in overstimulation? Right, Pearl? Right, Pearl? He says, lap, mom, lap, now. At 23 years old, years young, you get whatever you want, highly sensitive or not, and he definitely is. So, how do you work with a highly sensitive pet? This really crops up when you're training a highly sensitive pet, when you are introducing a highly sensitive pet to another prospective family member, or when you're headed to the dog park, or you want to attend a pet meetup group where there's going to be lots of people and lots of pets. So, what can you do to help prepare your highly sensitive pet, and how can you work with your highly sensitive pets so that they feel calm and comfortable and in control? And I know that phrase "in control" it's gotten a bad rap, especially in this new era of self-actualization and personal growth and evolution. But in control in the context of an animal's world, and especially a highly sensitive animal's world, means I feel safe. I feel like I have sufficient control over my environment, my situation, my surroundings, that I can move with ease and freely and not get gripped by my fight, flight, or freeze survival system. So let's talk about that. The first area I want to address is actually when you're working with a highly sensitive animal and in some kind of training or even rehabilitative training, by which I mean an animal's gotten frustrated by an activity and no longer wants to do it. Or an example would be from the last video, our dachshund Flash Gordon getting frustrated by his new puzzle toy because he just can't easily figure it out. And so instead of continuing to press forward, he just kind of retreats into frustration, especially because he feels like he's being observed and judged. And so part of it, of course, is as the pet parent, especially if we're highly sensitive ourselves, like I am, we have to kind of monitor our own emotional outflow so that we aren't inadvertently triggering the highly sensitive temperament traits that tend to shut down our highly sensitive pets. But also we have to recognize that the way that we work with our highly sensitive animals isn't really different from the way we work with highly sensitive humans. In fact, to be quite honest, the more I do this work, the less I care what kind of costume you're wearing. I do not believe that animals are any less emotionally nuanced, deep, and complex than the human animal is. I do not believe that there's any kind of dumbing down or simplicity that happens in their life. We may impose that on them based on the constraints of our home environment, our home life, our rules and regulations, our own availability to interact with them. But in context with who they are as a being, as a live, conscious, sentient being, there really isn't a difference. We could swap costumes tomorrow, especially highly sensitive to highly sensitive, and I doubt anyone would be able to detect the difference. So I can just use myself as an example. You know, when I was going through my formal schooling, which of course for most of us has been very left brain, very logical, very rational, much about immediate, fast results and then testing for those, I sucked at math. I don't have the gene. I don't add 1 and 1 without a calculator these days, and thank goodness for them. I am all about technological advancement in the mathematics area. And, for many years, my mom, who is a teacher, tried to tutor me. And by the time I would get home from school, I would be so ashamed. I actually had a teacher who would make me stand up in front of the class and would share with the whole class that they had to take the math quiz over again because Shannon failed it again. Not even kidding you. So suffice it to say, I was extra highly sensitive when it came to math tutoring. And so she would only have to say one little thing like, well, what do you think you should do next in this quadratic equation? And I would be like, I'm just shutting down. Like you could just see the whole system powering down because I was already in that shame spiral. And our animals can be in the same kind of a shame spiral, especially if they feel like there's other animals around them who are mastering something that they can't get, especially if they can really feel that pressure from the human that they're working with who really doesn't understand. Because, of course, we're coming into the training scenario and we're saying, I'm doing my best and it's not working the way that I expected it to work. And so we have to understand it's not that it's not working, it's just maybe not working in the big, supersized pieces we're offering it. And that can be anything from the complexity of the task we're trying to train to the length of the training session or simply to the amount of emotional investment we have in the outcome. So, what we want to do is break it down, make it bite sized. And bites by bite sized, I mean, here, come here, sweet baby. When you think of this bird right here, bite sized for him, not bite sized for me. And that way, you keep the training sessions short and sweet, lots of reward, even for a little bit of effort and improvement. And just set your mind and your heart because animals communicate with each other and with us through pictures and emotions. Words are kind of a last resort. If you want to learn more about this, I highly recommend you either watch the movie, depending on if you're more of like a movie person or a book person or what kind of time you have. Watch Temple Grandin with Claire Danes. It's an awesome example of what this looks like in real life. And the coolest thing about her is that she has her own unique path in animal communication. She might not call it that, but she definitely has the inside track to understand how animals perceive their worlds and how they experience their worlds because she's autistic. She's also a doctor of livestock science and has spent her career revolutionizing how commercial livestock animals are treated while they're in their bodies and while they're moving through their days and getting ready to feed our needs, to put it bluntly. So you could either watch that movie. It's called Temple Grandin, her name, or you could read the book Thinking in Pictures, which is her autobiography. And she's got a lot of books out, Animals in Translation, Animals Make Us Human. She's got a lot of amazing books, but start there. And you can really kind of understand better how what you're picturing in your mind and how you're feeling, your emotional body is going to be the most impactful experience your animal has on a day-to-day basis. This is actually why this is how I teach animal communication as well. Because when we start to get dropped back down into our physical body, into our emotional body, into our mental body, and into our spirit, the point of connection, our connecting body, if you will. Some people like to call it the soul body or the spirit body. It doesn't matter to me what you call it. But when we're able to really be present on all those levels, then animal communication becomes so much simpler. It becomes easy. It becomes seamless at a certain point. And just to understand, this is a universal language that we human animals also have access to. So if that's something that's of interest to you, you can head over to animallovelanguages.com and learn with me, and you can learn more about the ways that you can work with me and learn animal communication for yourself. Or if you just want to book a session, that's awesome too. The other thing to really notice when, because we talked about kind of training or educating or even rehabilitating a highly sensitive animal, the other piece I want to talk about in this video is we've planned an outing and you're headed out with your highly sensitive animal to have an experience together with others. And that could be multi-species. It could be others you plan to be with and others that are just there or just show up. But the key thing to remember, especially if you're not highly sensitive yourself, and this isn't about like highly sensitive is better or not highly sensitive is better. There actually is no better or worse. And in fact, statistically speaking, the research that has been done shows that about 80% of an average species population is going to be not highly sensitive. And that's a particular way of interacting with the local environment. It's a particular way of responding to stress. It's a particular way of engaging with opposition and opportunity. And about 20% of the average species population, here I'm talking across species, not just human animals, not just cockatiels or dogs or cats or horses or whoever we're talking about. And I'm talking about across species for the research that has been done. About 20% of an average population is highly sensitive. And this too is a way of interacting with the local environment on a day-to-day basis. How do we respond to stress? How do we engage with opportunity? How do we engage with opposition? How do we cope when there's privation or extreme trauma or environmental stress, like even a lack of food or water or a natural disaster or something like that? And so it's a different kind of coping mechanism. So what we have to understand is that in any context, we can see where either one of these personality defaults or kind of the place we go first is going to be a strength. In other situations, it might be perceived as an obstacle or even a struggle or a weakness. And there's also a spectrum. It's like we're not trying to generalize like, oh, all highly sensitive people or beings are introverted. That is not true. You can be a highly sensitive extrovert. I happen to be a highly sensitive introvert, but you can also be a not highly sensitive introvert, or you can be a not highly sensitive extrovert. And there is a spectrum, and this research is young. So I want to get back to the dog part, or the cat meetup, or the parrot club meeting, or the the chicken show, or wherever you're headed, or the horse agility or dressage competition, or wherever you're going with your highly sensitive pet, whether it's just fun at the park or it is something a little bit more structured with certain goals and expectations for outcomes. What we have to understand here is that the same basic tenets apply. We need a little goes a long way with a highly sensitive being of any species. And I really want to emphasize that, because a highly sensitive being is basically like a being who's walking around with all of their volume settings, their physical, mental, emotional, and connective body with their volume turned up, like all the way up, especially at the more extreme end. And I happen to be a representative example of this, so I can really speak to that. Pearl, my parrot, is as well. He's extremely reactive to anything loud, anything strong, like an odor or a light, or even just the time of day. Like, he has an incredible internal body clock, and he knows when it's like 6:59, he's screaming to go to bed, even if it's bright sunlight out like it is right now. So we have to just kind of understand that a little always goes a long way with someone who's walking around with all of their volume settings turned up to 10. And so you might just kind of adjust your plans accordingly. And that doesn't have to look like you leave the event after 10 minutes. But what you can explore is maybe every half an hour. I am involved with a local nonprofit group called the Pup Stop here in Houston, and they periodically have vendor events and pet parent gatherings and little happy hours at bars. And I took Flash Gordon last month to go and meet up with some of the people I've met through this group and just have a beverage and just hang out. And I'm highly sensitive, Flash is highly sensitive. And so about every half an hour, and this is about a 2-hour event, but every half an hour, I would just take him on a walk. And I'd just go, down the street, and we just go sniff things and just look at things and just kind of be together, alone together, if you will, and kind of decompress. And then we'd come back and we'd have a little bit more interaction, and then we leave again. And so it can be something as simple as that. It's also really important, and I'll talk about this more in the next video, it's really important to notice the signs that your animal needs a break, that your highly sensitive animal needs a timeout in a good way, to reset, to recharge, understanding that in certain ways, although you can definitely be a highly sensitive extrovert, in certain ways, treating or managing the highly sensitive personality can look a little bit like introversion, and that we need to turn the volume down. And that means plugging back into a lower impact environment, something softer, something subtler, something with a little more space and maybe a little more personal sanctuary. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you're enjoying the series so far. You may already be very aware that you are keeping company with a highly sensitive pet or a highly sensitive person, or that you are an HSP yourself. That's the HSP is what we talk about, how we designate ourselves when we're talking with folks that already know what we're talking about. So now you're in the in club there. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video series and that you're enjoying it so far. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know wherever you're watching this. You can DM me or leave me a comment or a question. And if you have a highly sensitive pet and you want to have a chat about it, feel free to hit me up. I adore working with highly sensitive people and highly sensitive pets because it's kind of my sweet spot. So look forward to seeing you for the next video in this series. All my love, and bye for now.